Before you say yes to sharing your passwords, your accounts, or your devices, ask yourself whether or not you're feeling any pressure from your partner to do that. Think about what might happen if this relationship splits up.
Before you say yes to sharing a location, your passwords, access to accounts, and ask yourself, would I still feel comfortable if the relationship ended tomorrow with that other person having all that information?
I'm Karen Fitzpatrick, former senior bank executive, now working with companies, governments and regulators around the world to change the way financial products are designed. This podcast is about financial consent, what to check, what to ask before you share your money, your accounts and your digital life with someone you love. So before you say yes to sharing your digital world, listen to this.
I'm Karen Bentley and I'm the CEO of WESNET, and WESNET is the national peak body for domestic and family violence services in Australia.
Karen has been helping those services understand tech abuse since before most of us had even heard the term. What she knows about how our digital lives become enmeshed in our relationships and how hard they are to unpick will change the way you think about sharing a password.
Relationships come and go. It's just life, isn't it? And you can get very tangled up in a relationship, and that includes with all of your online accounts potentially, your bank accounts. All of those things get tangled up as you sort of come together. I like to think about it as cleaving. You cleave together in a new relationship, don't you? And you're very close during the thing. And then if a relationship breaks down, you need to cleave them apart. And we're very good at putting them together, and so are technology companies and platforms, but it's much more difficult to untangle them afterwards. And there's a lot of different things to untangle.
I find a lot of people kind of fall into that pooling things, pooling your money, pooling your accounts. I'll just sign up with the energy company. Don't worry, I'll organise the telephone bills. Shall we get a joint account? But not really deliberately thinking about what does this mean if something does go wrong, and it could be an illness or it could be the worst of violence or financial abuse, obviously, which I'm particularly interested in. How can you have those conversations to be really deliberate about what am I sharing in this? Who's doing what?
I think you need to think about where there's asymmetry. So, if you're in a relationship and it's mutually agreed that one partner's going to take control of all of one thing versus another, that's often about sharing in a relationship. But when it's forced or when you feel pressure, that might be a time, and that might happen quite sort of in a loving way at first and then change. So it's very hard to know, but just keeping an eye on your autonomy, like not losing yourself completely, I think is a lesson. I think today's world is a bit different and the tech aspect of it makes it harder. So I do think you need to kind of have some boundaries around some of your personal accounts and things like that sometimes, or just go into it with your eyes open.
So then what are the biggest things that you see that people might not realise that they've done during that setup?
Well, I always am going on about, different emails and passwords with things, but sharing your iCloud account because you're trying to share music or, your Spotify account or your Google account and letting people into those accounts. And, we see that in younger generations in particular. There's sort of like, of course I'm going to share my location all the time. But what happens when you don't want to share your location? So and there's sort of this equivalence that, well, if you don't share your password with me, you don't love me, making it the same as trust and loyalty when it actually, you do have a right to some personal boundaries and some privacy. Everybody has that right. So setting those boundaries around and not seeing, I need to be in your email account if you love me. It's those kind of behaviours. No, nobody has to see your email account. Nobody needs to be inside your iCloud account, if it's convenient for something, fine, but like just understand that it's not a requirement to show your love and commitment to share your passwords and accounts.
And I have to say, it's like those memes that you see at the moment about, someone being extorted. I'll access and I'll release all the photos. And then lots of middle-aged women are saying, here's what's in my photo folder, and it's where they've parked in the car park so they can find their car. If anyone were to have a look in my emails, it'd be very, very boring. But you're right. Why do you need to have that access? Maybe there is a point of convenience on something specific, but it doesn't it's not a sign that you love somebody. So if you were to say to somebody, here is how you can feel really in control of your digital life, what might be the top 2 to 3 things that you would ask them to check?
Yeah, look, use a password manager. You can't remember a different password for every account. So grab one of those password managers. There's some really good ones. Use two-factor authentication on all your accounts. One of the key pieces of advice is, and I know lots of people do this, is that if you are setting up an account, don't use the same password and email for every single account. Try and, have a few different ones and have an email account that, is on the accounts that really count, like your superannuation and your government account and your bank accounts. Have one for that you don't use for anything else. Emails are free. They're very easy to set up, and you can have as many of them as you like. So just having a bit of variation in your email can be one of the safest things to do. It means that if there's a data leak or something like that on one of your accounts, you're not in trouble on all of them. So I've got one email address which I only use for government, superannuation, banking and medical, and I do not use that for anything else. I never use it for shopping. I never use it for social media, and I know that that's there, and I've got really strong security on it. So I've got a two-factor authentication on it, and it's, I know that I'm never going to use that for anything else. If I start getting junk mail on any of that, which I shouldn't do, I know I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And then I just use, disposable email addresses for things that I'm just, if I find something on Instagram that I think looks nice, I'll use one of those. Hide my emails, which are even built into, the iPhone now, but there's so many different places you can get different email accounts. And then I've got one that I just use for my social media accounts, and I've got another one that I use for shopping. And this just sort of helps me if I sort of, I don't know, if that's sort of good cyber security hygiene just generally for the world. But in terms of an intimate partner, it also just keeps that a little bit mixed up as well. So it's not one account, one password. The other one is like put two-factor authentication on everything you can, because, it's pretty easy if you get somebody. I mean, one of the main things that we see in terms of trying to work out how people might be being tracked down, for example, or how they know what's in an email or how they know what's in a text message, is because, people very easily guess your iCloud or your Google. Like if you've got a phone, you've got an Apple ID or you've got a Google. If you've got an iPhone, it's Apple. If it's an Android, you've got a Google account. If somebody gets into that, they've got access to all your emails, maybe your messages, your location, all of your calendar. There's a lot of information in there. So making sure that one's really secure, two-factor authentication and using the built-in features to see who's logged into your account and where, very handy.
So for people who are not familiar with that, I think they're great practical tips about your emails and two-factor authentication. You talked about those built-in safety features. What kinds of safety features are built in?
It constantly surprises me as well. And, I'll quite often, log out and log back into my iPad or something, and all of a sudden it's like, you've got a new device on your iMessage. So those things, I mean, that's what technology is designed to do, isn't it? It's designed to make the world as frictionless as possible. And it's designed to make it seamless and synchronized and easy. Organisations like WESNET have been working with Apple to actually build in safety features. So if you, for example, want to know who's connected to your device for all of the bits and pieces, you can use something called Safety Check on Apple. You just literally pull down the screen, write Safety Check, and it'll come up. And Safety Check on Apple, for example, has got a thing which tells you can go through it really sort of bit by bit, and it'll show you who's in what. It'll go through your family sharing. It'll go through who you're sharing the location with. And you can decide to turn one or all of those off. And you can just use that every day if you like, or every week, just to see, well, who is in my account on my iPhone and my iCloud. And you can see where everything is happening in one spot on the device.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I bet you not many people know about that
Not
feature.
many people know about that, but it's really, really fabulous. Designed by domestic and family violence advocates with Apple to try and make that feature available. So, yeah, you just pull down and type in Safety Check and it'll take you straight there in the settings.
The decisions most of us make about which accounts to share and which devices to connect feels small. Stephen Wilson knows what they look like on the other end though. He's the CEO of Protective Group, a firm that goes into people's homes to find out who's been watching them, who's been listening, and what is still connected that shouldn't be. And he's seen what will make you want to check your fridge.
So something like a smart fridge where they can have access to an app and they can post things on the whiteboard of the fridge. No more child support for you. You're never going to get your kids all the time. I'll see you in court. So weaponising just a simple thing like a fridge, but using it for very similar messaging that the banking was used for.
Yeah, and social media apps and,
all of them.
Is this something we only see in extreme cases, or is it more common than people realise?
I think it's more common. ANRO's research found that I believe it was 1 in 2 Australian adults have experienced some form of tech-facilitated abuse. So I think if you take it out of the cohort or the context of family violence victims, I think there's a hell of a lot of tech abuse that happens in the workplace, between neighbours, in communities. There's quite a bit of tech abuse. We get a lot of people coming to us that aren't family violence related that are concerned that the neighbours put a listening device in their home or that something else going wrong there.
When we talk about access, what does that mean in a digital context? So is it the main things that people are using every day, like that carry access, like phones and email and those sorts of things?
I think access is any way that someone can see, control or monitor what you do on your devices. Phones, text, email, cloud account, social media. And once someone has that access, they can gather all your personal information. Because, look, a lot of what we find is on people's devices and iPads and laptops, and we find them on kids' gaming consoles as well, is more compromised accounts where the perpetrator still knows the victim's passwords and can log in and read all their emails. I think that's probably really quite a common one. And there could well be spyware that someone's installed on their device. And spyware comes in many forms. It's sold pretty much now as parental control software. Again, it may well have been put in consultation prior to a separation where we say, look, we need to keep an eye on the kids when they go to school, so let's have Life 360. Let's have family sharing. And then all of a sudden you split up and the perpetrator can still have access to that information. Probably when you come to spyware can, if installed on someone's device, and it's done pretty easily, you can read their emails, their text, you can hear their conversations even when they're not, when the phones are sitting on the table. They put in keywords like lawyer, bank, child support. So when a victim sends a text or an email to someone around, he hasn't paid me my child support, it sends him an alert. He can then open the phone and read what's going on through it. So that's something that happens. If you're talking again, another intersection between tech and financial is a thing as simple as a supermarket rewards card. Now, whether it's a Woolworths or a Coles, whatever it might be, but if you look at a Woolworths rewards card, again, prior to separation, everyone in the family has access to the one card. It's easiest to put everything on the one card. So one person might hold the card, but everyone else has access. If you've got access to that app, and I've seen it happen before where the perpetrators can actually see what you're buying, how much you're spending, where you're spending at. And if you're in hiding and you go to a supermarket, they can pick up a bit of a pattern. I've heard of another one recently where he had access to the Uber account and he was monitoring the Uber account, and he could actually see where the Uber delivery was taking the food to a secret location.
If you were starting a relationship and you're starting to share your money, your bills, think about what that life looks like together, but also as individuals in that. Are there a few tips that you would give about how you'd set that up so that if something did happen, so you're preparing for the worst but hoping for the best?
When it comes to setting up things, separate accounts, don't share passwords, turn off your location settings, checking apps, having strong passwords. So I think they're all things that I think when you're embarking on a relationship, I still think you need to control your own digital footprint.
What does that mean?
Well, just controlling, do you really necessarily need to share banking passwords? Do you need to share locations all the time? My phone has the locations off. My phone has the Bluetooth off. I tend to be quite cautious generally about what I do. But that's just me.
I don't want people to walk away from this thinking, oh my gosh, I can never share anything, or feeling a bit overwhelmed or suspicious of everything. How do you think, what do you think is the best approach for people to think about this in a balanced way so that they can go about their life, they can fall in love, happily live happily ever after, potentially, or protect themselves if, like many relationships don't survive, and then some of them can turn particularly nasty. How do you navigate that, particularly in a world where you are immersed in probably the worst things that people can do to each other?
And that's why, to keep an open mind, I'd say like more digital self-care. You don't want to scare everyone and make them all think that you can't use technology anymore. Again, technology designed for good, just when it's it can be used for evil, I suppose. It's weaponised. I wouldn't want people to think you have to distrust everyone, because that's not the way to go. I'd say to people, you know what, live your life, use all those things, use them smartly. And before you go into a relationship, it's very hard. It's like having a prenuptial agreement, I suppose. It's very hard to talk about something you don't feel comfortable with. But maybe people have to in this age and say, look, we're going to move forward in a relationship. What are you comfortable sharing? Most victims don't even know what half the apps on their phones do. So, when you do, if you are to exit a relationship and to remain safe, it's good to, as I say, make sure your locations are off. Go through your phone, remove any apps that you don't think you need, check all your accounts are up to date, change all your passwords. Change all your passwords, and not just to your banking, but to everything, your toll accounts, your rewards cards, your flybys, your IKEA accounts, Netflix accounts, anything that you've got a password, change it moving forward just to remain safe. But again, it's not about scaring people. Everyone can lead a healthy life and a healthy relationship. Just be mindful of what you share. I think that's the main thing.
My takeaway from Karen and Stephen: your digital life and your financial life are exactly the same thing. Whoever has access to your accounts, your email, your banking, your rewards cards, your Uber, your connected devices, has visibility of what you spend, where you go, and what you're planning. And that's not paranoia. That's how the products are designed. Before you say yes to sharing your digital life, do this. Keep 3 accounts strictly yours: your primary email, your banking credentials, and your government services logins like MyGov or ATO or Medicare. Not because you don't trust your partner, but because these are your digital identity. And once someone else has access, unpicking it is much harder than setting it up was. Set up a separate email for financial accounts. Whoever receives the statements has visibility of what's happening. If your bank, your super, your insurance, or your bills are all going to one shared inbox, or your partner's inbox, you've handed over financial oversight you may not get back easily. A separate email costs nothing. Run a connected account audit. List everything that's linked, like streaming accounts, rewards cards, cloud storage, location sharing, smart home devices. For each one, ask, if the relationship ended tomorrow, could I remove their access or mine in 5 minutes? If the answer's no, that's worth knowing now. Your rewards card tracks more than points. Whoever's got the primary account on a supermarket rewards card can see what you buy, where and when. Same goes for your Uber account, your Flybys, your fuel card. These are location and spending records. Know who has access. Check your Apple Safety Check or the equivalent on your device once, just to see what you've already shared and with whom. Type Safety Check and it'll show you who's in your accounts, who you're sharing location with, and let you turn off anything you didn't realise was on. 3 minutes. Most people have never done it. This isn't about distrusting the person you love. It's about knowing what you've agreed to because you've already agreed to it or before you do. Because love shouldn't cost you freedom.